Hello, everybody. Welcome to the Media Show on the Pod TV network. I'm Nick Pellavita. I'll be your moderator for today's show. And with that, we're going to bring in some people from the media. Our gentleman that has over 100 years almost of experience in the media and journalism broadcast, and also has a degree in journalism from Marquette University, none other than the Honorable Mark Lee, who will be discussing, of course, the topic is going to be the Democrats nominate who, which is a good question. And with that, we're going to bring also from down under, Shaquille Latmer, to give a perspective on the international perspective on the nominee. And Sasha will be joining us later on. And when I wrote this up, I didn't know, that Joe was going to step aside, which I thought was a good move on the chessboard. He definitely needed to step aside and appoint Kamala, which I also thought was a good move on the chessboard. Now it's Kamala's game to win or lose. And the real question, I don't think it's her, it's who's her handlers, who's her advisors, who's talking to her about how to win this election. If she gets good advisors, good handlers, get good script writers, she can win. If she doesn't, and it's same old, she will lose. And that's kind of like the name of the game. Unfortunately, the metrics that people decide on are totally different than I would decide on. So it's really, Kamala, did you do your hair? I mean, it's gonna be all having to do nothing with the issues. In other words, the issues of America are not going to be important. It's going to be everything else but the issues. But at the same time, I think she could stand up very well on a debate, because now the old man is Donald Trump, and Donald Trump did not look good.
He likes to ramble, and he's a good rambler.
Because he rambles. Yeah, he rambles like an old man.
And I mentioned on World Edition, and I have to get into the details, but I've talked to friends of mine that have gone to HBCUs, including some that have gone to Howard, and actually one of our other panelists kind of alluded to it earlier as well. So Kamala does have some skeletons in her closet, and I'm sure that the Trump camp will pull out those skeletons. Definitely, there was the whole notion of Willie Brown, who was her mentor and like 30 years her senior. So some people are thinking that even when she was in California, that she slept her way to the top. And there was even some people in her school systems that have said that was kind of her modus operandi, even in college and everything. So definitely, I think that the Republicans will pull out these kind of tropes and all along those lines. So definitely they'll be trying to find some of this dirt on her, including dirt from some of the people that went to school with her and may not have had favorable terms with her, and all along those lines, because that's one of the things that happens in politics, is that people dig up the dirt, and it might have been old dirt. We've seen that on a number of candidates, and I think that that's what's going to happen with Kamala as well, because I've even heard people that have went to school with her at Howard, and there are some people in that camp that had some questions about how she got some of the jobs that she had, even when she was in the university, and all along those lines. So I do know that this kind of notion will be played, and I don't know whether folks are aware of that or what their thoughts are going to be. But yeah, that's one of my concerns, is that the mud's about to fly.
Yeah,
that's a good way to really piss off a lot of women, and I would say a lot of moderate men, if the best you can come up with is that she slept her way to the top. I think one of the big issues that she's going to have, though, is at the moment, we don't know who's going to run with her, or even if she's going to be the nominee. But who exactly is she able to pull as a voter that wasn't already going to vote for the Biden-Harris campaign? I think that's going to be the issue, and I think that's why her VP pick is so important, because I don't think that there are many people who are on the fence who are now going to say, okay, she's in, I'm going to vote for her. I think the Democrats are going to be careful about attacking Donald Trump for his age, because he certainly seems a lot more energetic, and they've just spent 4 years saying that it's wrong to attack Joe Biden for his age.
Oh,
no, wait a minute. You cut him off.
Oh, he disappeared.
Yeah,
he disappeared.
What I'm saying was, if they're going to attack Donald Trump for his age, the big media has just spent 4 years saying that Joe Biden is not too old. So I think that's going to be a little bit difficult. But as I said, I think a VP is going to be very, very important in pulling those extra votes in. And if Republicans start, down the path of what essentially slut shaming her because she slept to the top, which there's no actual evidence of, Yeah, okay, she went out with a guy who's 30 years her
Donald
senior.
Trump.
Well, Donald Trump's married to someone who's 30 years his junior. I mean, yeah, this is going to be. I don't think that bodes very well for Republicans, to be honest.
Well, in that same line and everything, what are our thoughts? Because one of the things that was said, it can be done in a good manner, it can be done in a bad manner. But one of the things that we've seen in modern times is how social media is how people make their announcements. So a lot of people got on Biden's case because apparently he did not make the announcement of his dropping out in the traditional way by going on main media, even though I think he's going to do that later on in the week, that he's going to explain it to the American people, his reasoning and everything. But he first made the announcement on social media. And on that same line, there was a very popular fitness person that prepared his obituary in that same kind of way, that being Richard Simmons, because apparently Richard Simmons' team had shared that he already had prepared what he was going to say before he passed away in the middle of this month and everything. Because apparently
it's a pretty poor showing, I think, to release that announcement on X, and according to his own staffers, they weren't aware of it until 20 minutes after it had come out. So I thought that was pretty poor. The other thing is that, generally speaking, if there's going to be a big political announcement and they don't want too much attention on it, they'll release it on a Friday. If they do want a lot of attention on it, they'll release it on Monday. It releases it on a Sunday, which is odd for a couple of reasons. One, it's over the weekend, but two, because when you release it on a Sunday, it's Monday for the rest of the world. So even if American media didn't want to make too much of a big deal about it, you've got no choice because the whole world is talking about it. Sorry, Rick, did you have your hand up? You have to forgive me because I'm on my phone, so I can't see you guys very clearly. Rick?
So, I mean, I read a couple stories about how it came down, and it was pretty much just at some point he said, F it, I'm done. I mean, he was convinced, and that was just the point in time when all his people like ganged up on him and said, look at the polls, look at the fundraising, you're done. And he was all pissed off, but he admitted people were right, just pressed the frickin' button.
Look, there's a lot of rumors. So, I mean, I've heard rumors that powerful people in the Democrats have made comments to him like, if you don't go, this is going to get much worse, and threatened the 25th Amendment on him. We don't know what really happened. Right?
According to one article, Nancy Pelosi said, I've been nice for 3 weeks, but at some point I'm going to get not nice.
Which means what, though? Which means what? I mean, it's hard enough to win an election when half the country is not on your side, but that's every election. It's impossible to do it when you're fighting your own party. But what does not nice mean? If the choice ultimately is his, does that imply that there's some truth to the rumor that they were going to enact the 25th Amendment?
I don't think so. I think I imagined, and I don't know, I'm no authority, that she would make more public statements. Like Clooney said, and it's crazy that we're listening to Clooney, but he said that the Joe Biden I saw at this fundraiser was not the Joe Biden I've known from 2020, but he was the kind of feeble guy that we saw in the debate. I assume we'd see the same thing from Nancy Pelosi, that she would make public statements, indicating that he's losing his shit.
Well, this is the thing that's interesting, though, Rick, because there was a lot of rumors of people that knew him, that liked him, that thought he was a very warm person, that was saying back in 2020 that there's something not right with him. And there wasn't a lot of media coverage. Here, we now have a lot more media coverage, especially since those debates. And then, Donald Trump's good fortune that he survived that assassination attempt has just meant that he's skyrocketed the polls.
Yeah, I mean, so I can see people wanting to keep Biden, even as his decision. Apparently, he's always been a slow decision maker, even as his speech slows down and stuff. Like, if you've got a guy with 50 years of political experience and he still knows a lot of stuff, he's just having more and more trouble expressing it. I can see wanting to keep him in charge, and then people fooling themselves when they think that this isn't going to look like crap when he's forced to make public appearances. Yeah. And they say he's super energetic between 10 a.m. and 4 p.m. Well, Trump didn't do that many hours of work as president. So I can see there's a lot of reasons for, people to kind of fool themselves about, Biden, finding him.
Yeah, but Trump did just get up and deliver. Although Sasha will tell you it was a dreadful speech, but he did get up and ramble for 90 minutes, and he rambled quite energetically for 90 minutes.
Yeah, so the people who argue that Trump is losing it's hard to deny that he can get up and talk for 2 hours straight if you'll let him.
Yeah, but there was a lot of rambling in that speech as well.
Yeah, but that's his people don't care. It's like, I mean, the whole Hannibal Lecter thing is mystifying, but his people don't care.
But the other thing that he did that some people took as an insult, and some people, I guess, thought it as a bravery. But I'd love to hear both of your thoughts, including Nick, that's now joined us back again. And all of
But don't forget Thatcher sitting here.
But there's this whole notion of like people seeing, because he was nearly assassinated, and then some of the Republicans put gauze on it to kind of come in, support of him and what he had went through, and all along those lines. And then there was this whole notion of the only thing I can call it is like a statue that was supposed to be honoring the person that lost his life in the attack on him and everything. And some people would say that was a form of grandstanding. I'm not saying that they're right or wrong, but I just wonder your take on this, because there was a lot of things. I mean, there was even the big Trump neon signs and everything.
So he, at the convention, he embraced the uniform of the guy who was killed. And then people who thought this was ridiculous pointed out that they couldn't even spell the guy's name right.
No. That was how it was spelled on his uniform, because his surname was too long and it didn't fit.
Okay, all right. So I stand corrected. So okay.
But look, I don't think that sort of grandstanding, as Mark's putting it probably correctly. So I don't think it's going to make any real difference to the election outcome. And I think that people have to be sold on something, right? So much to the chagrin of Sasha, I think that people are sold on the idea that there's going to be more stability and a better economy under Trump than what there was under the Biden administration. Doesn't matter whether it's true or not, but I think that's what people think. I think for Democrats, they're going to have to come in and say, what are we going to do differently? And at the moment, they're not particularly popular, which is oftentimes something that happens with incumbents anyway. What they have to do is to make an argument about what they're going to do in the next 4 or potentially 8 years if it's Harris. They can't just say, look, we're going to do what we have been doing. Now, with Trump, it's interesting because Trump's looking to the past. He's not really talking an awful lot about what he's going to do in the future. What he's saying is, look, the election was stolen from me, or COVID got in the way, or whatever the case is. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to bring the country back to what it was between 2016 and 2020, and that seems to be working for him pretty well.
Shaquille, there is a major flaw in what you just said. You said that there will be better economy and international relationships under Trump. That's what most people think. If you would say that that's what you think, I would have no problems with that.
No, but that's not what I think, though.
When you said most people think, then there shouldn't be even an election at all, because most people think that the economy will be better and relationships international will be better. Then why do we have election? Of course, you elevate Mr. Trump to deliver all that.
No, hang on a second. So I'm not saying that's what I think, because I don't agree with that position. But what I'm saying is that the polls seem to be indicating. Certainly, look, we don't know what the new polls are, right? Because we haven't actually got a Democrat nominee. But certainly under Biden, the polls were indicating that Donald Trump was taking a pretty significant lead across the country. And in fact, he actually had a lead in the popular vote polls as well. So that would indicate that the majority of people are attracted to something. Now, they can't possibly be attracted to his vision for the future of America, because he hasn't expressed that. All he's expressed is going back to what he had. So again, I'm not saying that I believe the country is going to be better off. I'm not saying I believe it's going to be worse off either. I think there are differences, and like I've said before, in any political policy, there are going to be some winners and some losers. I think that the most important thing for governments to do is to focus on, if we're going to take the country in this direction, what can we do to help those people that are worse off because of what we're doing?
But Kamala Harris can write her own script now. She just needs some good script writers, so she needs to hire Rick Rosner to write her scripts and her.
I already sent her a suggestion that she needs to announce as part of her platform, she needs to announce a commission to save Social Security and Medicare. She doesn't have to have a position. She just has to
That's
say
a great idea. Rick, that's a great idea. And see, that's what I'm saying. Kamala can win this, but
well, the other thing that she can do is any screw ups that have occurred, she can blame on Biden. Any screw ups that have occurred, even though it wasn't me, that was
all
Biden.
she has to do is say, I'm new. I'm taking the country in a different direction. People will buy into whatever she says, as long as she gets good handlers to tell her what to say, and if she doesn't, she will lose. Okay. If she does, she will win. This election isn't over with you.
Look, arguably, legacy media is also going to be on her side, regardless of what she says. So that's what people are expecting. The question is, and I brought this up on the Australian show today, is what does big media want to do? Because big media are touted as having lost a lot of credibility with people. Do they want to continue to be seen as a biased media towards the left, or do they want to try and be more neutral, like Jack Tapper and thing on CNN during the debate, which I thought they did a great job.
She needs to also penetrate through social media, because big media, we know Fox is going to worship Trump no matter what he does, and MSNBC is going to worship Kamala no matter what she does, and the media is going to move more to the left. But the real question is she going to be able to penetrate the social media aspects and the younger generation? Is she going to have the good script writers like Rick Rosner behind her, or is she going to be same old, because Joe Biden couldn't deliver a line to save his life?
Well, you get AOC to help her with social media.
Let's talk about her handlers. Biden's handlers are now, they're bad. They kept him insulated. They didn't. Obama's campaign people were good. They were forward thinking. So I'm hoping she pulls, from the pool of available talent. I hope she doesn't pull Biden's people and she pulls her own competent people. Let's talk about betting markets for a second. U.S. betting markets have Trump twice as likely to win over Harris. I assume her odds will improve once she becomes the choice. I also guess that foreign betting markets have Trump's odds being much better than that.
Yeah, but those are too early to tell.
So,
I mean,
the odds on Trump winning are fairly. The odds on Trump winning are fairly similar. However, one of the reasons why her odds are still a bit higher than what you would expect them to be is because theoretically you could have Michelle Obama as the second best pick, which is at $30. Do you know what I mean? So you theoretically could have other people. So it's not until she gets a nomination that those odds will firm in. I'd expect them to firm into something around the sort of $1.70 mark for Donald Trump and $3.20, something like that for Harris. Which look, when you've got odds like that, it's pretty unusual that we see an upset. We do see them, but it's pretty unusual that you see that. She's currently priced to win the Democratic nomination at $1.15, so that would imply that she's got about a 80 to 90% chance of picking up the Democratic nomination based on what the betting markets are predicting. I haven't actually had a look to see if there's any odds being published on who the VP pick will be. But I know they are published somewhere. I just haven't had a look. Haven't had a chance to have a look at them yet.
But you still have 30 days. There's a lot of runway left. I mean, it's just like if you looked at early betting odds. Remember, Trump? They were saying Biden was going to win until, of course, the debate comes up. The betting odds early on are going to be totally different. Americans are ADD, so they're only going to listen to the last couple of things that they see.
Yeah, but Donald Trump's
probably till October. But
Donald Trump's been ahead of Biden. Donald Trump's been ahead of Biden in the international betting markets for a significant period of time now. And that was a lot closer before, but he's been ahead of it for a very significant period of time. The other thing I just want to bring up, so I don't know, I haven't seen it on American media. I just want to tell you something that's been reported in both UK and Australian media that I've seen is a question of whether or not there's a mini civil war happening within the Democratic Party based on the fact that Obama didn't come out and endorse her wholeheartedly. And what has been reported, and I'm not saying it's true or not, I'm just telling you what's been reported, is that the Clintons and Obamas have still have an issue with each other, and because the Clintons endorsed her, maybe the Obamas won't.
I found the VP odds. The front runners are Shapiro and Roy Cooper at plus 225, followed by Kelly and Bashir, and then everybody else is a long shot.
Well, out of those ones, I think it'll be Shapiro. I think her best bet would be Shapiro for the reasons I gave on the earlier two shows. He's in Pennsylvania. You need that. And hopefully you pick up Michigan and Wisconsin as well. And perhaps even Minnesota.
North Carolina is only about 3 electoral college votes behind Pennsylvania. So don't be surprised if she reaches and takes North Carolina.
So do we think America is done with having a problem with the Jews? Because Shapiro's Jewish, Harris's husband is Jewish. I mean, I assume that racist lunatics will...
There's always going to be some small element that's out there, just like in everything. But I think generally the answer is they don't care. And
the majority of the country don't have a problem with Jewish people.
The vast majority don't care. The vast majority, what they really care about is how are you going to help me? In other words, she's got to talk to the American public. I am here to help you find housing that's affordable. I'm here to help you make sure that you can afford your groceries.
But as soon as she says that, Nick, as soon as she says I'm gonna help you find housing that's more affordable and make sure that you've got food in your belly, everyone's gonna go, oh no, she's gonna lock us up. That way you've got housing.
She has a thing in her past as Attorney General that is pro-housing. She reached a $25 billion settlement to the benefit of people who were unfairly foreclosed on in the crash of 2008.
Yeah, but and see, these are issues that are important to people. She's got to address specifically how she's going to help you, because remember, it's all about them. If she I have the luxury of the land of abortion, 50% of the people don't give a rat's rear about because they're men.
I have the luxury of men are 50% of the people that are responsible for pregnancies. Rick, I have the great luxury of having lived in Australia for most of my life, and the 2008 Great Recession. If you ask most Australians, hey, what was that like? They're going to, especially young Australians, they're going to say, what recession? Because we didn't have one. We had a boom during that time. So from an outsider's point looking in, and the bankers that I work with don't like me saying this, but as far as I'm concerned, everybody was unfairly foreclosed on. How they can give $700 billion in TARP, plus everything else that they did to prop up the banking sector and the finance sector and AIG and etc., and then let houses get foreclosed and just sit there and rot while people lost everything. That's a disgrace. It really is. It should never have happened.
Yeah, well, but the thing is, the number one issue for everybody is the economy. In other words, how can you help me keep gas prices down? How can you help me keep food prices down? Remember, it's all about them. How can you help me get affordable housing? It's all about them.
So. Well, I've got an idea, and it's one that people don't like very much, right? Put yourselves back in a recession. Cost of living goes down dramatically. Inflation goes down dramatically. So this is the thing that people keep forgetting, right? During 2007, 8, 9, the debacle that happened in the international markets at that time, interest rates dropped very, very low. The complaint at the time was that it was unfair on people that had saved money because their savings and the returns that they were going to make was diluted in a way because they wanted to essentially subsidize cheap money for the banks. Now interest rates have gone up. People are complaining that they're being hit with higher cost of living. Interest rates have gone up. But why did interest rates go up? One of the reasons was that they wanted to reduce inflation. And the heads of most of the major central banks, including the Fed in America, said, what we're going to do is we're going to drive up unemployment and we're going to drive up the cost of living by increasing interest rates. So when I say if you really want cost of living to come down, what you need is a recession. I know that sounds like I'm just being silly, but actually during recessions, your cost of living is really cheap. So be careful what you wish for.
The Fed uses the euphemism, cool the economy. Cooling the economy means, pushing towards a recession.
Yeah, people don't want to hear that. They say that all the time. Their situation can get better. They want.
They say things like this all the time, though.
They're going to make their situation better. So she's got to address the American public on a positive note and bring that positive. She has a chance but she better have some good handlers. She better have some good script writers.
But you also better have some good counter responses because, you know, when I was in Canada I went to Canada quite a few times over a couple of years, and one of the things that was talked about in Vancouver, but probably across the whole country, was the overheating of the property market, especially at the hands of international and especially Asian investors into that area. Now, that means that young people, we're having the same problem here in Australia, it means that young people struggle to be able to afford to get housing, so they want to be helped. You want to be helped how? Well, let's cool the property market. What that means is that you're going to enact some sort of rule or regulation that artificially keeps the prices lower than what they would otherwise be. That comes at a cost that existing property owners are missing out on the profits that they would otherwise have made. So again, no matter what you ask for, the way that they're going to deliver it to you is often problematic. So you go back to, okay, well, if we don't want to cool the property market, what else can we do? Well, we can provide some sort of tax subsidies and loan guarantees, etc., to make sure that everybody can afford to own their own home. Well, you George W. Bush, you Alan Greenspan, and what happened? You had the Great Recession largely as a result of loans being given to people that would otherwise not have been able to afford them. So these issues, they never have a simple solution. And what politicians are going to do, left, right, whatever, they're just going to come up with one quick byline. We're going to do this,
That's exactly it.
and there's no real analysis of what they're actually suggesting.
Trump gives no details. Kamala doesn't have to give any details.
No, exactly. But that's exactly my point.
You and I know the
exactly my point.
But
yeah,
the people don't.
And that's exactly my point. The problem with that is that there's no real care or consideration for what the result is going to be, what the consequences are going to be. It's just about getting power, and that's such a problem, I think, in politics around the world, around the Western world today, is that politicians are so given to
That's the name of the game if you want to get elected. By the way, Rick's going to be next, but let me tell you something, Rick. I was watching a movie, had all the big names up there. I mean, so I go, how bad can it be? I watched the movie. It was horrible. I couldn't even go through the whole thing. I turned it off because the script writers were bad, and none of your A-list celebrities could save the script. The script made it so bad, I just turned it off. And then I watched, they lost like $100 million in the box office. They spent all this money. I don't even know the name of the movie. Hundreds of millions of dollars. It went down the toilet. I'll have to go find the movie. It was really.
Yeah, if you've seen a lot of movies, and most people have since COVID, everybody stayed home and watched everything, then yeah, people have a better nose for what's crap than they used to, because we've all
Squid Games was pretty popular.
Yeah,
I don't see Nick watching it, but I enjoyed it.
I'll have to go back and look at the movie. I couldn't even go see the whole thing because it was that bad. But what happened was when we first went through it, it had A-list celebrity, A-list celebrity, A-list celebrity.
Name the celebrities. I'll tell you what movie you're talking about.
Well, I have to go find. It was so bad I literally turned it off. It's buried in my Netflix.
Nick, it's not one of Rick's.
You cannot save it if you've got a bad script. So if Kamala has a good script, she will win.
Also, she needs a
Nick, it's not one of this movie you're talking about. It's not one of Rick's pornos that used to have a storyline that you've watched. That's what he's always talking about.
Kill it. It wasn't that bad.
No, Harris needs a slogan too. Trump's had a slogan forever, MAGA, for 9 years now, and the Democrats don't have a slogan that I know about.
No, they do. No, they do, and that I think is such a problem. If especially if Kamala's going to get the nomination, because the slogan was, "Let's finish the job," or "Finish something like that." Finish the job. So now she's going to have to. I think that she'll be best served pivoting away and not going with, "Hey, we're just going to do what we've been doing." Right? She's going to have to come up with something new. But that was their slogan for "Let's finish the job."
Yeah, and
but look at the 2016 election. The 2016 election, would make America great again. And Hillary's was, "I'm with her." I mean, what?
Yeah. I think Obama's was "Yes, we can," or "Hope."
Yeah, it was "Yes, we can." Yeah.
And those are effective slogans. I mean, the way you write a slogan is you get 6 or 8 people in a room, and they come up with 150, 200, 300 ideas, and then they pare those down to the best 25. Then they walk into the office with Harris, and they say, "Here are our 25 best choices and they kick them around, and she picks, one or two best ones. Or if she's smart, she says, some of these are okay, but none of them are great. Go back and do it again. And you do it until you hundreds of ideas until you come up with the right one. And I don't trust them to even know that procedure. Just to go back to housing prices, I looked up Vancouver housing prices. Vancouver is the part of Canada closest to Asia, and Asia is what has driven. And so average house in Vancouver, $1 million American. Average price per square foot, almost $1,000 American.
So that coming from Australia seems like a bargain. That seems quite cheap. I like Vancouver. So when I was over there, my family were like, I can't believe the price of housing in Vancouver. And I looked it up and went, yeah, I can't believe how reasonable it is.
What does stuff cost in Australia?
Well, in Sydney, which is where my houses are, it's outrageous. I mean, you pay millions of dollars for an actual house if you can find one. But look, it's relative, right? We earn a bit more. We've got a stronger economy, plus our location, our geographical closeness to Asia, etc. So there's a lot of things that come into play there. Also, Americans tend to treat their houses more like commodities, whereas Australia we tend to look after for a bit longer. So there's just differences in the markets. But as I said, when people say we're going to cool the market, the former Prime Minister of New Zealand talked about this. Let's cool the market in New Zealand, but it doesn't make sense to me, because when you do that, if you take all of the housing stock in a particular country and artificially depress the price or stop the price from rising, you're making the whole country poorer in order to help these, a certain demographic. I think you'd be better off just giving them a direct subsidy. But there's lots of ways of doing it, but just the main point I'm saying is that whenever politicians react to something, you've got to think about what they're doing. Inflation, for example, is a great example of this. Inflation is largely brought about because people say, I want government to pay for more things, or I want them to provide me with more services, but don't you dare raise my taxes. The way that they can do that, inflation.
Is anybody in Australia trying to figure out how to get water to the desert? Because your country is mostly empty. You're a coastal country because most of your country is desert. If you could figure out how to irrigate Australia, you could support double the population.
There's water there. It's just too bloody hot. It's like Canada, right? Canada is very, very similar actually in demographics. It's very, very similar in a lot of things to us, except our government's a bit more sensible. Sorry, Sash, I had to throw that in there because our Senate is actually elected instead of being appointed by the Prime Minister. I'll just start with that. But Canada is very similar because the majority of Canadians live along the border to the US, and you've got this vast swathe of land, which is just covered in ice. It's basically an icy desert. In Canada. So it looks similar demographics. Canada's a mineral-rich country like we are in Australia. Look, we could certainly have a lot more people here. I don't see that being an issue, but I do think that a lot of people, similar to America, feel very displaced and feel very angry when they can't afford to buy a house or they can't afford to pay for bills and things like that, and you bring in 500,000 new immigrants. Now, that's not part per capita is not quite as high as what it is in the US, but it still has been something that's been very controversial in this current administration. Sasha, do you want to respond to my little comments about Canada or anything else?
Thank you, Shaquille. No, you're right. I agree with all your statement about Canada. The only thing is, I don't understand the idea of bringing the changes to nature of Australia, or bringing water there, or do some other things, or making much more than half of Canada warmer, so more people would come here. But what for? What's the aim of bringing? Let's see, Canada could make most of its climate warmer, but there is a warmer climate coming in the next couple of 100 years anyway, so why work hard for that when it comes naturally? So all Canada will become in capital, and so therefore you You can potentially bring to Canada, say, 100 million people. Now, what for? What's the benefit for Canadians to bring more 100 million people? I
Well,
don't
that's
see any.
well, that's an easy answer though. So, firstly, with Australia, there's plenty of water there. It's just that it's really bloody hot. It's a desert. And if you look at my arms and my legs at the moment, so I won't put you through the ordeal of looking at my legs, but I'm covered in insect bites at the moment. Look, I think there's a big part of the population that benefits from an increase in immigration, legal immigration. I'll start with that, because it puts upward pressure on existing asset prices. So I think there's a lot of people that are after that short-term fix. Now, we know that estimates are that we'll hit peak population at around 9 billion. Assuming that that's not the case, you want to bring people into your country as quickly as possible. With the falling birth rate, immigration is a good way of doing that. Does that make sense? I don't think so. I think you're better off encouraging young people to have more babies. But let's have a look at the trajectory the United States is in. At the moment, depending on who you're listening to, the population sits somewhere between 330 and 350 million people in the United States. The projections are that that's going to become 500 million by 2050. That's a lot of people. That's 150 more people, 150 million more people. So where's the housing going to come from? What are they going to do? Now, unlike Canada and Australia, the great thing about the United States, it's a big country. And I don't mean big as in land mass, because Australia is almost the same size. If you take California away, for example, and Alaska, it's about the same size, the country. But they've got more cities. They've got more, you can drive from bit to bit to bit. It's pretty rare in the United States, outside of flyover states, that you're going to be in the middle of nowhere. Not so much the case in Canada, not so much the case in Australia. So America can probably absorb the people, but still that's a lot of people, and that again is going to have that upward pressure. It's also going to increase the total size of the economy. Over the next 10 years or so, the size of the economy is projected to grow to 50 trillion from the 30 trillion you're at right now.
We have room for all those people in the Southwest, but unlike you, we don't have enough water. The whole Southwest is supplied with water mostly by the Colorado River, which is not a big river. And we already have needs that are well more than that can supply. If you could figure out how to get water to the Southwest, we could fit another 20 million people.
It's easy.
Look, I think that's an easy solution. Sorry.
From Canada, that's all. Canada has plenty of water.
I think that's an easy solution. What Sasha just said, pump the water down from there. But the other thing is you can actually pull water out of the air. There's a few different machines to do it. What's the problem with that? It's energy intensive. I think that if we can get, to me, the next big revolution is going to be, outside of AI, is going to be energy creation. Because if you can create energy in a way that is minimally harmful to the environment, you can afford to waste the energy, which means that you can store it so that you can match peak load demands and things like that. And it also means that you can use the energy to do things that you wouldn't have wanted to do before, like growing fruits and vegetables with hydroponics and aeroponics and all those sorts of things. So a lot of things that you can do if you've got energy in abundance, which is cheap and minimally damaging to the environment. So if we can get that right, and I think we will, if we can get that right, and I think we will, but I think in order to get it right, as I've alluded to on other shows, what we need to be able to do is we need to be able to have sensible conversations. This is going to work on this part of California. This is going to work in this part of Texas, et cetera, et cetera.
There was a movie from 2017 called Downsizing with Matt Damon that had a solution. They had a machine that makes people 6 inches tall. So when you're that small, you consume less resources. A doghouse is a mansion for you.
Well, we're going to go down to what's that Rick Moranis movie? Honey, was it Honey, I Shrunk the Kids? I used to love that.
Yeah.
I don't want to bring science fiction in here, but you can solve the water problem already. There are machines that are being developed to do this. They actually convert air into water. Now, one of the ones
I did just say that, Nick. I did just say that.
Yeah, right. Okay, but the thing is, here's how you do it. You actually take a solar panel GPS system that guides the energy into the machine that turns the air into water. So hence, you're paying nothing for the energy and you just produce water. The problem with that is you need a lot of solar panels, and frankly, you need a lot of water machines. But can you do that? The answer is yes. The other problem is, even in the Southwest, we've already looked into this. Even in the Southwest, there's abundance of water that's cheaper to get than going through that type of system. So, yeah, it's a problem. It's not a bigger problem. It's a problem that technology will solve in the next 10 years.
But there's multiple ways of doing things. I mean, you can desalinate water so that you've got clean drinking water for people that desalinate ocean water. There's all sorts of different things. The question is, how much energy does it cost to produce it? But back to Sasha's point, because they've got an abundance of water, they certainly have an abundance of snow and ice, which can be melted.
And they have a lot of
if you can build an oil pipeline from Canada, from Alberta down to the US, pretty sure you can, and you can also pump electricity across the border. Then I'm pretty sure you can pump water down.
And Quebec has abundance of water, fresh water. You can pipe it down.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. It's a problem that's solvable. But back to Kamala Harris, she needs to have a slogan. I agree with you, Rick. You know, something about look to the future, something about young and attract the young voters, because they're bigger than the baby boomers right now in terms of a voting bloc. But she's got to get to them and get them out voting. Otherwise, she's going to lose. She has
as
a chance
we
to
know,
win.
the 18 to 29s, the lower percentage of them vote than any other demographic.
That's right. It's a horrible demographic because they're like apolitical. But at the same time, she has a chance. She really needs good handlers. She also has to get out there and get on all the crazy shows all the time. In other words, she has to basically not become the vice president anymore and just become a candidate for the president.
She has to go on talk shows. She has to go on
talk shows all the time. In other words,
but she's got to make sure it doesn't go cringe. Like what's the name from ET? Drew Barrymore, where she sat there and said, "Oh, you know what we need is mamala." And things like, just don't go cringe. Come on, like it's not working. And the thing is that generation especially doesn't like cringy stuff. Yeah. The other thing I'll just say here is, if you go back 20 years ago, and maybe 25 years ago, there was a lot of I don't know, frustration at conservatives, right? That the conservatives just boring. I still feel conservatives are just boring old people that just go and have your cup of tea somewhere, like go away. And you remember like Monty Python's Life of Brian that got, the conservatives were so upset about it, this and that. So they just look like the fun police. They look terrible. I would suggest now the so-called woke, without going into the definition of this, the woke crowd seems to be the fun police now. They're upset about everything. They're offended by everything. And a lot of people feel like it's gone too far. So I think that Kamala Harris needs to come back a little bit, like she tried to with the paper straws, where she goes, yeah, it's really annoying, and this and that. I think if she can become a little bit more human, sound like she's actually on people's level, but I think she's going to be very careful how she does it. It's very dangerous if she does it in such a way that makes people think that she's play acting or she's talking down to them. So she needs to be sincere about it, talk about her own background, talk about how she got to where she did, that sort of stuff. Maybe that'll be a little bit more inspiring.
But she needs good handlers for that, to tell her what is cool or not. Like Obama did Between Two Ferns, which is an intentionally cringe show. You will go, people. It's an incompetent on purpose talk show, and people are like, "You're taking a big risk by going on this." But no, it worked. So she needs young people who understand culture to tell. I can guarantee you that all the late night shows, their first assignment when they came to work today was come up with ideas for things to do with Kamala Harris if she agrees to come on our show.
Right.
So Gavin Newsom got a bit of an increase in his popularity amongst independents from outside of California when he went on to Sean Hannity's show. And then when he decided to have a debate with Ron DeSantis, and I watched the debate, I thought he held his own. I don't agree with him on some policy points, but I don't agree with Ron DeSantis on some policy points. I thought he did okay, but he got a lot of things when he went into the lion's den, so I got a lot of credit for that. I would say to Kamala, don't go to all of the late night shows that are going to support you. Maybe have a think about going on some of the shows that they don't necessarily support you. And it's not just mainstream media. Think about going on a Bill O'Reilly. Think about going on, what's her name, Kelly? What's her name? Long blonde hair.
Conway?
No, who says Santa Claus is white? Megyn Kelly.
Megyn Kelly. You know, people like that go on because they'll have them on. They'll certainly have her on. You know, a bit like Tucker Carlson had some debates with the Young Turks at one of the Polycons a few years ago.
If you're going to do that, and I agree she should, she needs to go onto a network like Fox. Because if you go on to, like, Megyn Kelly's been cut loose. She's like you know, has her own stuff now. So she's got no limits on what she can do. And so she might do something crazy. Fox does have some corporate limits.
Look, I don't think that Megyn Kelly would want to do that because she knows that whatever show she has with Kamala Harris is going to go everywhere. Same thing with Bill O'Reilly. It's going to go everywhere. You know what I mean? So I think that they're going to want to, especially because if they stuff it up, they're never going to get the opportunity again. It's like CNN hosting that debate. I thought that they did a tremendous job, and I'm sorry I've forgotten the lady's name now, but Jake Tapper and I forget the lady's name that hosted it.
Dana Bash, what was it?
Dana Bash, yeah. I think that they did a tremendous job, and I think the way they posed their questions to both candidates was fantastic. The debate performance from the two candidates wasn't so good, but I thought they did a really great job. But they also were dual broadcasting across all the networks around the world, so they had to do a good job, or they lose all credibility. So that would be my point there.
But that is what she needs to do. Here's what she's doing. She's going down to North Carolina, where we're at, and going to Democratic fundraisers and Democratic rallies. That will not work. If she continues to do that, she will lose because they're going to vote for her anyway. Okay. And she gains nothing to go to a Democratic rally or to a Democratic fundraiser. She does gain to go to like a Fox. She does gain if she goes to an ABC, CBS, a Jimmy Kimmel Live, whoever the late night shows are. Then she can make some traction and headway. But if she does the same old stuff, which she's been doing, like going to North Carolina. I'm serious. She goes to North Carolina. She's here all the time meeting with Steve. I said, what are you guys doing? Oh, we're going to a Democratic fundraiser. Yay. It makes us all feel good.
Yeah, I don't have confidence in the Democratic campaign people. I talked to somebody.
The problem they've got right now is that she's not actually the nominee. She's a presumptive nominee, but she's not actually the nominee. So she has to store up support from the Democrats. And this is the thing, because Joe Biden has left this so late, it really does put her and the Democrats in general in a pretty awkward position because, one, they have to deal with this so close to an election, 100 days away. Early voting is in, 50, 60 days. And two, they've got to deal with the fact that there's a lot of people out there that are saying, hey, like, we've been calling this for a really long time and you've been lying to us and gaslighting us, and now have a look. The other thing is that there's a lot of Republicans and conservatives around the world that are saying, oh, well, if he's not fit enough to run for president, then he's not fit enough to be president right now. He should resign, which I actually think is not a good thing for Republicans.
I think he should at some point in time. If she's not getting much traction, then he should resign. It's a play on the.
Yeah, but so the problem with that is, I'll tell you, there's a couple of problems with that. There's a couple of problems with that. One, it delegitimizes her achievement as being the first black woman president if she doesn't win the election, and she's only become the president for a couple of months because of the election. I mean, that delegitimizes her. Secondly, Joe Biden didn't say that he can't be the president, and what he said was for the good of my country and the good of my party, which is essentially a concession that he can't win the election.
But the real problem, if she becomes president, it's too much work. I hate to say it. She can't campaign and be president at the same time. It's better for her to campaign and forget the political office.
Well, it's also a little bit difficult when there was an interview. Do you guys remember? I don't know, a handful of months ago, where Nancy Pelosi, I think, was trying to defend her and saying, yeah, well, she doesn't do that much because vice presidents don't do that much. So that could work in her favor, or it might go heavily against her. Sorry, Rick.
You could do, this is a bit you could do for a late night, which is Kamala Harris gets ready to take over for the president, and it just shows her like going through the offices where Biden was, and they're filled with old people crap and that she doesn't know how to deal with. There's like a landline, and she's like, what is this thing? It's a dial telephone, and
right. But didn't Julia, what's her name from Seinfeld? Elaine, is it Julia Louis-Dreyfus?
Yeah,
Seinfeld. Yeah, well, they did something like that where the president wasn't running for a second term.
Right.
So I don't know if it's going to help if Kamala, reenacts herself.
I'm sure somebody's bringing that up because that was presented as like a total disaster for that character, that she got to be president for 3 months and then lost.
Yeah.
So
Yeah. Well, maybe she'll have to do an SNL skit or something.
yeah, so I don't have confidence in the campaign people. Somebody who knows politics explained it to me that Obama had a great team, but he let them disperse after 2012. This person said, you have to keep your people together. And so, but he let them go. And so they weren't available to Hillary Clinton in 2016. She lost. And, you know, the Democrats don't look like they have their campaigning together now. She needs to bring in a bunch of sharp, sharky people.
Look, I think, Rick, nobody wants to put their name behind something which they think is going to be a loser. And I think that's a difficulty that they've got right now.
If you pay them a ton of money. Come work for us for 4 months and we'll pay you $350,000 or $500,000.
Yeah, but you could earn that sort of money in the next campaign. I mean, look, I think the difficulty that they've got, and I'm not trying to just keep belaboring this point, I think the difficulty that they've got is that conservatives have been saying this for a long time, have been saying the media's been gaslighting them for a long time. Democrats have been saying, no, that's not happening. And everyone's stuck in the middle. It's like, well, what is actually happening? What's real? What's not? I think the issue that they've now got is that the media has let them down because after the debate, what could they do? And then, look, an assassination attempt on Donald Trump, you know, that's going to boost your popularity. And, you know, he came out with his you know, hand up and blood streaming down his face and all that sort of stuff. You know, people say, well, he shouldn't have done that. He put his own life and the Secret Service life in jeopardy, all that. Look, maybe he should have, maybe he shouldn't have. But that photo is going to be shown long after our lifetimes are done. And hundreds of years from now, people are going to see that photo.
It hasn't helped him yet. It's still a little soon to tell, but in the polls, the post-assassination attempt polls, he hasn't gotten that much of a boost. You know, the people who like him are still going to like him. The people who are on the fence about him, does that really, like...
Well, the founder of, what's his name from Facebook?
Mark Zuckerberg.
Mark Zuckerberg. He came out and said that was one of the most badass things he'd ever seen. So, I mean... I think it is going to have an effect. You've got people like 50 Cent that did a rap thing the next day and had his picture up. I mean, he is getting a lot more traction, I think, with a lot of people, including the big-name celebrities that never would have said this about him before. So I don't think it's reflected in the polls yet, but I think it will. And sorry, just one last thing, Mark. And as I've been saying over the last several weeks, the longer that this had gone on, the worse it became. So because it's only happened now, it's much worse than what it would have been if it had happened, you know, the day after the debate, if Joe Biden had just, you know, forfeited then.
But Shaquille, he's getting traction, but there's also traction, and I'm not going to get into the various conspiracy theories as to whether it was the bullet that hit him and then he's putting the gauze out, or whether it is the glass from the teleprompter that hit him, because even among liberals and moderates, there's a lot of question as to how much he was actually really in threat and everything. And I wasn't there, so I'm not going to say whether he was or wasn't, or whether it was a teleprompter glass or whether it was the actual bullet. But yeah, there's a lot of that is kind of to. So
Sasha wants to go next, but Sasha wants to go next, but I'll just sort of very quickly just address this. I'm no expert on ballistics, but what are we saying here? The teleprompters are here. He's looking down or he's looking out at them. The shooter's above him. So what are we saying? That the bullet came down like this, came up through the teleprompter, and then the glass covered.
The bullet hit the teleprompter, and it's the glass that actually cut him, because that would be closer to the kind of ear injury that he has. Because a lot of people are saying that it would be more massive if the bullet had actually hit him.
Well, it depends on how much the bullet actually hit him. It looked like it just grazed. You know, Sasha, you go first.
This episode makes me to think of a deterioration of Americans. Look, 60 years ago, they sent a rocket to the moon, not more than once, with people. Can they do it today? Probably not. John Kennedy was assassinated in 1963 in Dallas, and no question asked. He was just killed instantly right there in his car. So it was a moving target, although slowly, but moving target. And look at now what's happening is just a few days ago, the guy was aiming at the object which was not moving at all. And he couldn't hit him. This is just showing all the way how Americans are moving down the hill.
But you killed
So-
Sasha. In that same line of things, there's a popular movie that's out now. Rick, correct me if I'm wrong. That basically the premise of the movie is that the moon landing didn't take place, and it's a new movie that's out and all along those lines. You know,
Kind of, that's
Let
kind of
Rick go,
what-
and then I want to say something.
All right, so I did quite a bit of looking at the setup of where the teleprompters were, where Trump was, the bullets. There's actually a picture that shows a bullet flying past Trump. And at first I thought, yeah, it was a shattered teleprompter. But if you look at the photos after the attempt, the teleprompter's intact. It doesn't look shattered at all. It's also 2 feet or 3 feet in front of him. So it would have had to hit, and that's not where the bullets were flying. The bullets were flying behind his head, and it would have had to shatter from in front of him and then fly back. I think the guy got off eight bullets. I think a bullet grazed him.
Okay.
Yeah.
I'm going to have to fly
Let me
out.
just say something before we jump on.
Shaquille, I have to
We're gonna
tease
have
you
to
about
go.
something because there was a time
You
that
can
I was
tease them backstage. I got to
and I
go.
could barely hear you because of my home mic. So